Welcome in, everyone. This is the next episode of the Hunting Happiness podcast. I'm really looking forward to today's episode because this is the concept that I talk about the most frequently on a weekly basis. It's being able to have what you want. So the topic today is what's stopping you from having what you want. And first off, I want to tell you where you can find this podcast. If you're a first-time listener, if you're a person who's been listening for a while, you can find it on YouTube. You can find it on any of the podcast hosting platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, the list goes on, SoundCloud. But ultimately, wherever you're watching this, I really appreciate you listening. I really appreciate you watching, whichever form you're intaking it. And those are some of the places you can find it. Today, what's stopping you from having what you want? This is where I want your ears to be open and you to be prepared to figure out if you fall into one of these categories. There's a small chance that you don't. But the reality is most people, the high majority, are not in a position that they want to be in. They are not where they want to end up. They have not arrived in the destination that they would like to finally arrive. So, number one thing, fear of what will happen. So why you don't have what you want? Fear of what will happen if you do pursue it. The fear that you may not have success the whole time. The fear that you may not end up in the final position you want to end up in, so people would rather not even try. Rather not even approach it. Rather not even take the chance. But ultimately, anything worth having is going to require risk. Anything worth having is going to require risk. That's a really important concept to remember. That right there will set the stage for all the greatness that can happen inside of a lifetime. So the fear of what will happen is what's holding so many people back. So says Chris. Then what do I do about that? You make the decision to commit to what it is you want. And figuring out what it is you want can be the biggest challenge. But ultimately, it won't be challenging to figure out if you just take some mental inventory of the times that you've had the most happiness. So if you're the person who wants to absolutely crush it when it comes to social media, you want to immediately figure out what interests you, where do you feel the most energy, what really lights your fire, and then put your eggs into that basket and go and drive and move forward. If you're the person who wants to absolutely crush it in terms of business and you just want to pull in money, you just want to have people, income streams from all these different directions, figure out why you decide to purchase what you purchase. Whether you're the person who goes out for expensive meals consistently, or you're the person who spends your money on vintage checkerboards. Whatever your love is, you want to be able to identify it and then identify what is it about that makes you so attracted naturally to spend your money. What is it that makes you want to give away the money that you've earned and decide to put it into that? And then you transition that ideology towards what it is you want to do. For athletes, for stay-at-home parents, there's something for everybody, but fear is holding too many people back. And it's the thing that's creating this stagnant nature towards where we're going as potential entrepreneurs, or if you're the person who wants to work a 9 to 5. If you allow the fear of what will happen to hold you back, you're going to be held back. You're not going to move forward. So I want to be clear. You sitting around waiting for the right moment, it's not going to come. The right moment is not going to come because the moment has to be decided. And once you've decided the moment, then you have the opportunity to feel whether you want to go left, whether you want to go right, whether you want to go forward, whether you want to pause. All those things get decided after you've made the decision to pursue what it is you want. If you decide to go away from what you want or convince yourself that it's not really what you want, you will be stuck and you are going to stay. And what I want for everybody listening to this is to pursue what it is you want. I want you to spread your wings. I want you to dive into your passion. Because the feeling of once you get to the other side of that, it's immeasurable. It's not comparable. It's where you'll be able to unlock this happiness. It's where you'll be able to unlock the feelings that you dream of before you go to sleep and when you wake up. That ideology that you have, that want, that desire, that thing that you see, it's only possible if you make the decision to kick out fear and get going and start moving on that path. Number 2, what is stopping you from getting what you want? It's the fear of what they will think, and it's the fear of what they will say. Who's they? They is, and they are, the people in your life who you take your mentality from. And so I want to be clear about what I mean. When I say you take your mentality from, that can be people on TV or the internet who you've never even met. That can be influencers, that can be actors, that can be entertainers, that can be the people who are laying the foundation for the style that you decide to have. Oh, you like hip-hop music? Oh, you like country music? Well, those people are serving and setting an influence in your life for what you like and what you don't like and what's okay and what's not okay. The fashion, the style, the magazines, the tabloids, all these things that we see on a daily basis, whether it's on social media, as we're flipping through, it's important that we take the inventory of what it is that we actually like, and it's dope to be a fan. Be a fan, absolutely, but make sure that you're not worried about what it is they would think or what it is they would say if you chose what you would want to do, because I guarantee the people who are at the top of the food chain and the craft that you most enjoy watching, most enjoy intaking, most enjoy going to spend your money on, those people are doing what they want to do. The entertainers who make it to the top of the food chain as a musician or as an actress, they are doing what they want to do. That doesn't mean that it comes without challenge, but they're doing what they want to do. That's why they've been able to arrive at the top of the food chain, because people can see that. People can feel the natural energy of if you're actually putting in your time towards what it is that you desire and what lights your fire. If you're choosing to spend your time doing the things that you feel like you have to do, or because there's somebody in your life, like a parent or a friend or an influencer who told you that this is the move, this is the way to go, but you don't really feel that that's the move and that's the way to go and that's what you would choose if you had all the money in the world or if you had all the time in the world or all the resources in the world, because that's what you should do. You should do what it is you want to do if you had all the money, all the time, all the resources. And I understand there's a lot of people listening to this who have kids. There's a lot of people listening to this who have jobs. There's a lot of people listening to this who have responsibilities, things that they have to take care of. But ultimately, I'm telling you it's possible. It's possible for you to do what it is you want to do while still having kids, job, responsibilities. It's possible. But what's holding you back, what's stopping you, is fear of what they will say and what they will think. If you decide to quit your steady job right now that pays you 6 figures and move into something that's paying you 5 figures, people will say that that's ridiculous. That's unwise. That is not something that a logical person would do. But that's them casting their life, their opinion, their own experiences onto you, where you're a different person. You have different experiences. You have a different life, a different framework, a different brain work. What's important to you doesn't have to be important to them. And that's super important to remember when you're intaking advice. So notice when I'm talking to you, I'm not giving you a hard and fast of what the move is. I'm inviting you to ask yourself, what is it that really drives you? It can be the most unassuming thing. It could be that you enjoy the process of going to a store, looking around the store, and deciding how the aesthetics of the store should look. That is a job, and that could be a job you turn into 6 or 7 figures, believe it or not. If it's that you really enjoy going to games, and you just love giving your opinion on what's happening in the game, there is a job for that pays 6 or 7 figures. And the next question is not, well, do I look the part? Do I have the right age? Do I know the right people? That does not need to be the next question. The next question needs to be, how bad do you want it? If the next question is, how bad do you want it? And the answer to that is, I want it like I want anything that I've ever wanted in my life. I want it the strongest. I want it the most. I think about it daily. Then it's time to go. And it's time to go for it. It's time to push forward and drive into it. And that doesn't mean that the rest of your life has to get on pause. That does not mean that you have to sacrifice everything you've ever known. It does mean that you'll have to make some adjustments. It does mean that you'll have to dive in. It does mean that you'll have to have some challenging conversations and let people know that this is what you're doing and you're not concerned with what their opinion is. And that's hard. But doing hard things is the base of any great building, any great pyramid, any great challenge that's been achieved. It begins with a challenging conversation or a challenging realization. And for you, I want to help facilitate that realization that if you're not doing what it is you want to do, it's because of you stopping yourself. It's not because of society. It's not because there's anything out there making sure that you don't have the opportunity to achieve your goals. You have the ability to make it happen, and you can put yourself in the driver's seat. But you have to make the decision. Now, making that decision, like I said, it can be one of the most challenging things, but it's worth the challenge. So decide that it's worth the challenge. Once you decide that it's worth the challenge, it's not that everything from there becomes easy, but everything becomes easier. Everything becomes more manageable. Everything becomes more doable. But it starts with that primary decision. The final thing that I see on a weekly basis when it comes to this concept, what's stopping you from having what you want? It is people feeling like they don't deserve it. Like they haven't reached the right age. They haven't put in enough hours. They don't know the curriculum well enough. They don't know the material. They don't know how to execute like such and such and such and such. The comparison. And if you decide you won't go for it because of this ideology that you don't deserve it, then you're right. You don't deserve it. You're correct. You're absolutely correct. If you decide that you don't deserve it because you're not the right age, you're not the right look, you're not the right stage, you don't have the right amount of experience, then you're correct. But this is an invitation for you to flip that decision. If you feel like you don't deserve it because you don't have the amount of hours, this is your invitation to flip that. If you have the desire, you can get the hours as you go, but you have to start. Starting is the most important. If you don't have the look, you can be the next person who has the current look that you have to crush it in that space. And I always want you to be able to remember that there was a time when the look was different. Of any craft, any topic of conversation, the look used to be different. The jeans were skinny, the jeans were thick. The tops were cropped, the tops were full coverage. There were hats, there were no hats. The colors were vibrant, the colors were dark. The style switches. The visual switches. Taller, shorter, larger, thinner. That stuff is irrelevant if you decide it's irrelevant. What is relevant? Where your desire lies. If your desire lies in this craft, in this topic, in this thing that you want to do. You want to crush video games, you can crush video games. You want to crush the makeup and beauty, you can crush it. You want to crush business and really drive sales and scale, you can crush it. But it requires you to start, and it requires you to kick out fear. It requires you to lose care for anybody's opinion of what you're deciding to do for yourself. If you're not hurting them physically, go for it. Make the move. Start pushing. Start driving. Do the research today. That is what my invitation is for this particular topic. So what's stopping you from doing what you want to do? That's a question for you to ask yourself now. As it pertains to me, nothing's stopping me from doing what I want to do. If I want to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning every day, and I want to get this exercise in, and I want to get these words out, and I want to make sure that there's an opportunity for the people who are asking for this to receive it, I'm going to make sure of it. If I want to go to the beach and get in sports, if I want to wear a suit and tie, if I want to take a day off and do absolutely nothing, all those things I'm going to do. And they're not going to happen because anybody else gave me permission. They're going to happen because I know in my heart that whatever one of those things is that I want is what I want, and I'd be willing to sacrifice time. I'd be willing to sacrifice money. I'd be willing to sacrifice position in society. I'd be willing to sacrifice any of those things to be able to have what it is that I want. As long as I'm not hurting anybody physically, I'm maximizing my happiness. I'm making sure that I give the visual to other people of what it looks like to go after what a person wants, to go after what it is that I want. Then I'm adding value. And I want to remind you that if you were to go after what you want and you were to push that envelope and you were to put in the time and energy and work towards it, you would be adding value to society even more than you already are. You would be absolutely crushing it for society if you were to make that decision and start pushing. So don't think that because one area of your life is having this generic success, so you're making enough money, or you're keeping your head above water, or you're creating smiles within your household or within your business, or your boss is proud of you, or whatever the case, that means that you have arrived. Because you can ask yourself, if you've arrived, you can ask yourself if you've maxed your happiness. If you've really hunted it down and achieved it, you can ask yourself that. And if the answer is no, then pursue what it is that you want to do. It does not have to be one or the other. You can have this area that you feel like you're crushing it, but you can improve and max and scale this area where you don't feel like you're crushing it. You can have both, but it requires starting. That's the primary thing. So kick the fear of what will happen if you go. It'll go your way if you believe it'll go your way. It may not go your way the first time. You may have to lose before you win, but it'll go your way. So push for it. If you're worried about what they will think and what they will say, the people close to you, the people who you don't even know, the people who you find yourself influenced by, kick it. Because they're not going to be the ones who have to live your life. They're not going to be the ones who have the ultimate say on what happens for you. You'll be the ultimate one who has the say on what happens for you. And if you're feeling like you don't deserve it, remember, you don't have to be a part of the crowd. You don't have to already have what the other people who've had success in that field have. You can look at sample size. You can look at what works and what doesn't work. But you've got to believe that you, as you are, with the drive, with the care, with the commitment, can break ground and be able to be the person within that craft, within that skill, within that want, within that lifestyle, that desire. You could be that. But it begins with the belief. It begins with kicking the fear. It begins with kicking this ideology that you don't deserve it. You deserve it if you're willing to put the time and effort and energy in, and you deserve it if you're willing to take the risk. This is an invitation to take the risk. So think about exactly what it is that you want to do and be honest with yourself. Not what your mom told you should do, not what your boss told you should do, not what your sports coach told you should do, but think about what it is you want to do and then start to put the pieces together. Build the plan, get your resources in order because you're capable of having the resources, get them in order, push for the plan. You're going to be able to max that happiness with that right there. Put that plan in place today. This is your invitation. Go get it. If you want to find more on this podcast, you can get it on chrispaustin.com/podcast. You can find it on YouTube if you search Chris P. Austin. And what I want you to do is make sure you smash the like button. I want you to put in the comments whatever topics you're wanting to hear about, and we're going to keep building. So I'm really looking forward to you guys checking out the next one. I'm really glad you stayed in tune to this one. But more than anything, what I want from you is I want you to go utilize it. I don't want you to just hear it and have a day of motivation. I want you to go utilize it. Put it into action. Because if you put it into action, your life will change. And it's going to change for the better. I'll see you next podcast.